Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 5 of the Power of Witness series. Today on the hot seat, we have Laura and Casey. And if you have a chance and want to go back and listen to their interview on our show, go back and listen to episode 105. It's not required before you listen to this episode, but it is helpful. And the other thing I want to mention, if you're brand new and this is the first Power of Witness episode you're listening to, go back and listen to episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. It will help fill you in and give you more context for this whole series.
And if you're looking for any of the resources that get mentioned throughout this episode, either by Lauren Casey or by Catherine, or the resources that Catherine assigns to Lauren Casey, they will be in the show notes over at our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the resources tab, and you will find a link to Power of Witness. You will also be able to find it directly in your podcast player show notes section. Okay. While you are there, we'll also highly recommend, if you are interested in joining one of these Power of Witness groups, they will be private. The ones that Catherine runs, she's running one in February and one in March and beyond. But those are private. They will not be publicized on our podcast. But if you are interested in signing up for those or learning more about them, there are links in the show notes as well to check out. And we highly, highly recommend it.
Right. And I wanted to give just a little bit of an intro about this session with Laura and Casey. First, you'll laugh at how we all tend to get their names mixed up. We all wanted to call Laura Casey. So listen for that. It's kind of funny. But this is an example of a session where oftentimes when I'm working with couples, the relationship is my client, and we are working on the dynamics of that client, which is the relationship, how they interact with each other. And then sometimes when I work with a couple, we end up focusing more on one person, and the partner becomes a witness to that person. Sometimes an issue that one partner is dealing with comes to the forefront as more pushy and in need of support. And so that happened in this session. It isn't what we meant to have happen. We had an idea about what we wanted to work on for them as a couple, but this other issue bubbled to the top and we went with it. And I think it's an example of how I try to have some structure and some idea of where we're going, but I truly believe in following in Gestalt work, we call it the forefront. What is in your forefront? Where do we need to go? And because of that, we all agreed at the end that it didn't feel as wrapped up cleanly and nicely as we would have liked it in 50 minutes, but that happens sometimes too. So again, this one really is an example of watching us roll with it in the moment. It is raw. It's real. We didn't edit it. We didn't go back and try to make it fit the model that we were hoping or how it fit with the others. But I think you'll find that there's some real, especially some great work that Casey is going to launch into, and giving Laura some help and support in how to help him and support him in his work.
Yeah. A huge thank you to these two. They, not that anybody else didn't who was part of this, but this one gets a little bit emotional, and we just wanted to say thank you to them for showing up and being a part of the program.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so I was just reviewing our consult, and I've reviewed it before and felt like it was still pretty. It was so broad enough and specific enough at the same time that we didn't need to do a whole lot of rechecking in. I would love to think, but doubt that you guys fixed codependency in 4 weeks.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're good now.
Good.
It's been 4 weeks, 20 plus years of codependency. I mean, it's managed.
Yeah. So we don't really have anything we need to talk about.
Right.
Like a Monday morning, we just took care of it.
Yeah.
Let's just exchange sexy stories then. Forget about all this counseling stuff.
So for an hour, great.
All right. So I'll just give a little update, everybody, or let them kind of in on what we talked about. So basically what we agreed that we would talk about is the balance of autonomy and not in non-monogamy, how you all would like having this growing need for autonomy and wanting to stay in non-monogamy, but deciding how that would look like, what that would look like, especially kind of in the context of recovering as codependents. Right. And that the codependency issues, autonomy issues, hit day-to-day life as well, not just your non-monogamy journey.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I forget that this is
nodding doesn't help.
Nodding doesn't help.
Oh, right. I'll have to help you with that too. So what we had planned to do, if this still feels good, is to ask you all to share a little bit about your journey specifically with codependency. So on the episode, we heard about your journey with non-monogamy, consensual non-monogamy. And I know that there have been a few updates since your episode. So let's see. Maybe let's do it this order. Why don't you share a little bit about what's shifted in your consensual non-monogamy journey since the episode? Try to keep that really brief. And then give me a little bit of example of your journey and understanding of your flavor of codependency and how it pops up, and what your hopes for with autonomy are. And then we'll kind of jump in from there.
Okay. Should I go first?
Oh, yeah.
So I guess I'll just recap the non-monogamy portion quickly. Since I think the episode, we kind of ventured into potentially solo dating, and actually not both of us, just Casey did. Because we thought that may be fulfilling for him or fun for him to do. It wasn't really anything I was super interested in. So that happened. And then
let me ask you real quick, if I can interrupt, what made you all come to the conclusion that might be enjoyable or Casey, why did you think it would be enjoyable for you?
I've been monogamous since my early 20s. Mm-hmm. And even before that, I think I was a monogamous, long term or whatever.
Serial monogamous.
and long-term relationship. And, going into non-monogamy, I kind of, thought it might be nice to be able to enjoy some of the stuff maybe I didn't do as while I was younger. But I'm just, I'm really not comfortable around women. I think I understand that now, I just need that extra connection. To find someone, that I'm interested in takes a time. It's not something that comes real easy. So, and I thought, well, maybe some of that is due to my insecurities and my just being uncomfortable around women. And maybe if I went out there and just tried it and tried to meet people and create those relationships, that it would be helpful for us. And so I did that a little bit, and I, of course, navigated it completely wrong, looking in hindsight, but, that's what we're doing. I don't know, feeling somehow, I don't know. I felt guilt. I felt like what I was doing was not, not that it wasn't ethical, but it was deep down. I think there was the feelings of this just isn't right. And I trying to not hiding it from Laura, and not, she very much knew all about what was kind of going on, but trying, not feeling comfortable sharing it, which kind of sent us down a path, I think, which was not where we wanted to go. And that's kind of where it's not a part of us. It's not something we're doing as a team, whether or not she's physically there or not. It just wasn't something we were doing. And that just didn't work out. And then of course COVID came. So that was a really easy way to distance myself from that relationship, and unfortunately kind of just bury feelings around that, and some other stuff came up, and Laura will probably share it. It was just easier for me to just not deal with it because, it's hard to deal with right now. It's not something that we can just go out and do. So it's been easy to just bury that. So, that was February, March. And so it's been a while that this flavor of the codependency has reared its head,
Let me ask you, Okay. And let me ask you, is the easier to just bury it and ignore it? Is that a theme for you?
Oh yeah. I am very much a path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
If I can make someone happier, if I'm helping someone, that's really the big picture for me. You know, if I'm suffering, maybe it's not a big deal. I can deal with that. And, if I can make them happy and get them, to not be a problem, I'll definitely do that.
Okay. All right. So pretty conflict avoidant, people pleasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, even in life, I don't know. I think I kind of take that path, and sometimes it's a huge benefit for me in some of my adventures and things like that. But I can see how it just creates longer term, bigger problems when they're not faced. So.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you wouldn't do it if it didn't serve you in some way. I really have that belief in us as adaptive, resilient, amazing beings, that we don't pick up a habit because it really sucks and it hurts us. It helped you in some way, somehow. And yes, in this case, it helps you in the short term. And what you get in the short term has a bigger pay later, often.
I never really much look forward that far, I think.
Right. Right.
Which, again, good things and bad things.
Right. Okay. All right. So anything, Laura, that you want to add to the non-monogamy update?
Kinda. So we were going to go into the solo dating kind of as a quote unquote team. I know that doesn't, we're going to go into him solo dating kind of as a team, which didn't really work great because our paces in life and our communication styles are like really different. So he asked me to not be involved with that for him because of his discomfort with like my pace and just the way that I am. So I said, okay, no problem. That's fine. And I didn't feel like bad about it. I just felt like that was his boundary and he was asking me to like respect that. And so that was fine. But then as it kind of continued, I think he had a lot of feelings surrounding that. And this is where I think that it really is feeling like codependent in a not super healthy way. Like he had a lot of feelings that he asked for a boundary and that I respected it. And then he felt guilty for like not showing me things or not telling me things, that I was kind of okay with that. And then more non-monogamy pieces came. We were kind of thinking about looking for a third person to join us. And so I got on dating apps to find a third person for the both of us, not really to do dating by myself because it just isn't that appealing and it wasn't at the time. And it made him super uncomfortable, like within days. And he was like, this just is not going to work. And so I came off. And instead of like hearing what was really happening, I think in the moment, I just felt like hurt that he couldn't see that I was doing something for us. And also feeling like that's pretty codependent in a not healthy-ish way. So at that point, we just like put 100% stop to non-monogamy because really we just weren't on the same page-ish anymore, it felt like. And that just felt too unsafe, And so since then, we brought it up as a discussion between the both of us since then. And he continues to assert that we're just not in a healthy enough place in our relationship to explore outside of our relationship, which I can both respect, but also I don't have the same perspective on where we're at in our relationship. So to me, that sounds like he just doesn't want to deal with any, baggage or crap that comes up when we do pursue non-monogamy. And he wants to kind of stay with the normal. And to me, a relationship feels solid-ish, it feels okay. And so I guess that's where I want to find some sort of autonomy in each one of us feeling like we're a happy whole person. And then we can come together in this relationship and have a meaningful connection together, but also feel happy whole and solid as a person to be able to explore outside of our relationship if it were something that came up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And so that's a great summary. Casey, talk to me a little bit about what comes up for you with this idea of Laura's definition of autonomy, that each of you being healthy, whole people that can explore as you want. What comes up for you when you hear that?
A lot of conflicting ideas on what that looks like to her. Mm-hmm. And really, I guess what the images that conjures up to me. And, I think slowly I'm understanding a better idea of what she's looking for. Mm-hmm. And trying to choose words. I think I have a better understanding of that. And, the way we've lived has, we've never been what I would, of course we've had a solid relationship for 20 years. But we've always had, the quarrels and the issues and, very emotional.
Our life is an emotional roller coaster. I mean, it has been.
A lot of that has been, I think I've always battled with some sort of minor depression or something, and I finally, got some medical help for that, about a year ago. And I think I've made some really big strides in just my personal emotional roller coaster. So I think I'm able to kind of see what she wants. But at the same time, I think my insecurities are just around myself. I think the fear of loss, of losing her is still there, which, it seems super far off to, a rational me speaking to you and the world on a podcast. And I've done a little bit of thinking, since we've met, some of the ideas around all this kid talk about what we did when we were kids, I thought that was just crazy. And it's funny because I'm still, still like, that's so long ago, but still seeing like, wow, okay, yeah, some of the stuff I've always done my whole life. And that's, path of least resistance. But I think, there's always been something missing, or I feel, with Laura, and the way that she, her, love language, and the way she shares and gives and receives, just relate, emotions and care. And I feel like
that something was missing in how
how
her?
she shared it with me.
Okay.
I've always felt a very, I don't know, how, like compliment. She will never.
I don't think I've given him more than 5 compliments in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, I don't, I've learned to be okay with, I think I've thought that I've learned to be okay with it, but I think, it's just hard for me. So then when I see, when she's messaging people or even like in-person flirting, I think it's sad because I see her doing, grabbing somebody's arm, or I don't know, compliment the way she, it's the new, and you can't blame her. I mean, that's how you show somebody you like them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's some, just emotions for me around that. When I see that, that's, I think, something I've wanted for 20 years and never really received. And so, like, when I see that, I think that's some of the instant gut-wrenching things, like with the jealousy. And like a girl on Tinder or whatever app is insane, So I've been on there a couple, a month before Laura probably signed up, and I'm a decent looking guy. I got 5 or 6 people maybe messaging me throughout that time, and nothing ever transpired. And she signs up for a day, and she's got like 900 guys, just and so that too, like, I'm not one of a kind. There's a ton of great people out there, really. And so there's a lot of feelings there. And I know that's something, I really need to work on. But again, with my personality, the COVID, it's been so easy to just plow that path of least resistance and shut down. But I'm working on it, trying.
Okay.
I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
that helps. So it's as I've said to you all, I throw noodles against the wall. I don't know what's going to stick. But one of the things I'm wondering about is this may sound crazy, but Casey, it almost sounds like you're pretty comfortable with the codependence the way it's been. Like that maybe there isn't a lot of motivation for you to change that. Am I hearing that? Okay, just so everybody knows, like Laura's about to nod her head off.
She's headbanging.
She's headbanging in the nodding. So Laura definitely agrees with those noodles. How does that feel for you, Casey?
I think that really is the narrative, happily ever after. And, you see, I grew up with the Brady, watching Brady Bunch. It was well before my time, really. But I don't know why. I love the corny shows. And I don't know, all those sitcoms. And even in my mom and dad's relationship, it was very much, the man makes decisions. And I don't even want that. But I guess it's more of, I don't know, the submissiveness act, the there for your husband, that's your job. And it kind of hurts to say that because I'd like to think, I'm progressive and I don't think our relationship has any of that.
Well, it really doesn't. I make the decisions and you follow them, but
I don't know if it goes like that either. Calm down.
Pretty close.
Probably. I'm easygoing. But so I think some of that narrative is super ingrained in my head. And I think the need for me to feel, pawned after or, sought, is something, I've probably built up an unhealthy need for that, and Laura's been telling me this for years. And, we've talked about how, I need to understand that, I cannot expect or look for someone else to fill any voids. It's kind of my responsibility to figure that out. So I understand, that's not how I want to feel, but I would say there is a little bit of me enjoying that or getting some fulfillment out of it, I guess.
Okay. That's a brave admission. That's why I was like, I don't know if this is going to stick or not, but, again, sort of like with Jack, it's brave to admit the ways patriarchy has served, and this way the codependency is serving you in some ways, and it's status quo, and there's comfort, and it's easier, and so being able to serve that, I think it touches on some of that other stuff we've talked about. With first, we have to look at how it serves us before we can ever think about letting it go. Right. So let me ask you, Casey, before I've been focusing on you a little bit, and I'm going to get you off the hot seat in a second, but do you see ways that it either isn't serving you or isn't serving your relationship? And we won't go to necessarily how it isn't serving Laura yet, but are there any ways that you see that your codependent tendencies aren't serving you or not serving your relationship?
It's definitely not serving my relationship. I guess, and here's me, is I'm always thinking of how it's not serving her or other people. It serves me at, I think, sheer comfort, and a false narrative, that I kind of grew up with.
When you say false narrative, do you think it's like false sense of security narrative?
Yeah, a little bit of that. Maybe, I guess, to have, it's the relationship, I thought I always wanted. And, that's what you do to be happily ever after. You find a girl or, a partner, and you get a house and you have kids, and she come home and you have a nice warm dinner cooked, and people, but at the same time,
but I fed this. for
because you
20
thought that's
years,
what
because I also thought that that's what was an expectation. That's what that you wanted. That's what I thought was safe and happy. I mean, we both built that. It wasn't just you.
No, yeah. Well, yeah, a lot. I mean, and so many people, and we're and what's funny is as progressive and crazy as we are, you know, even in thinking of non-monogamy, you know, we still have these, you know, narratives that are still pretty ingrained in our heads.
Yeah. Okay, but the question of how it isn't serving you.
It's not serving me because it's pushing my partner away, and you know, has caused a lot of friction in closing all the doors that we can have open, you know, to fulfilling us. You know, I mean, we can have some really great times. And the best times to me are when we're the most vulnerable and just, I don't know, able to freely and discuss things in a very mature manner, and not childish and arguing and yelling.
Or hiding, burying.
Or hiding. Yeah, and I do a lot of hiding. So it's forcing us further apart. And you know, that's sad and scary in many ways.
So it sounds like you've got an internal battle between comfort, old narrative, going back to that unconscious commitment to this ingrained narrative that you have, this unconscious commitment to avoiding or the path of least resistance, avoiding conflict.
This is easiest to continue. I know what that path is. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
But yeah, I know. I've been down that road. I know what it is. I know I can manage and live, and I will still be alive. And the other path is kind of more unknown. It's going to trigger me to have to deal with these emotions, to talk about them, to figure them out. So it is easier the other way. And I think that's probably my biggest hurdle at making any progress.
Well, and I also think your wording is setting you up. That the path of codependent monogamy is how I'm going to kind of call that path, is easier because is easier. And then you say because of blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
But it has a big cost, and it may not be easier because it may get you another 2 years of what you've got or what parts either one of you would have to deaden in order to stay on that path. People often, you know, who are not in non-monogamy, who find out that I am and ask me about it, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, but isn't that so hard? That sounds so hard." And I'm like, what you're doing is hard too. One isn't better than the other, and I don't have an agenda about which one you do, but don't trick yourself into thinking one's easy. That's like, you know, drives me crazy when people think that giving kids goldfish is a healthy snack. I'm like, it's junk food. It's delicious junk food, and enjoy junk food all you want, but don't think you're giving your kids carrots. Like, just know what you're getting into. So when you say this other path is easier, I'm going to challenge you on that, because as long as you're using that word easier, your lizard brain is going to be like, go with that one. Because the lizard brain wants you to preserve all your resources. Don't run, because the bear might chase you later. You got to be rested. Always choose the easier one. Rest when you can rest. Eat as much as you can when you can eat as much as you can. So as long as you're using that word easier, do you see how it's going to be really hard to get the part of your brain that needs to be online in alignment with this?
You make it sound so simple.
Well, I don't mean to make it sound simple, but does that resonate?
No, but it does. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you tell yourself, you know, the freaking fish crackers taste way better than a carrot, I mean, of course you're going to say, I want some fish crackers. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And that probably goes a lot with what Laura tries to help with, and that's, you know, rewriting that narrative or that internal monologue. And not saying,
or I guess, I think it's maybe just making sure that you're looking at
the right thing.
More realistically, what about each path is easy and what about each path is hard? Or maybe we stop using hard and easy. We use pro con. We use what do I get from this? What do I get from this? Because again, this whole idea of like, oh, well, non-monogamy is hard and monogamy is easy. Bullshit. I mean, monogamy is really hard too.
And
which one do you want to choose?
And when I say this path is easier, I even say this path with non-monogamy, but the path that I know, the path that I have ventured on before, even if it is just, single guys every now and then, or just what I've known. Like I've done that. I know that that's safe and that works. And that feels the simpler or easier way. But even that, I guess, it's been really shut down, and I still would have to really figure out, it's been so long since we've had to have any non-monogamy discussions that.
Okay, let's challenge those words. It's been so long since we've had to have any non-monogamy conversations. Me, I'm like, oh, it's been so long since we've gotten to have any.
Right.
I mean, and I don't.
To me, I appreciate non-monogamy conversations and discussions because I feel like he's more open and interested in engaging with me because he wants to be open and engaging with me, because that's how we both are able to achieve consensual non-monogamy, because we're engaged and participating. But if we don't have any discussions and if it's 100% shut down, then we don't have conversations that are deep and meaningful surrounding what we want. And then we get into a place where he tells me we are not having any intimacy and we're not connecting. But he had then previously said, do not bring these things up to me because it makes me uncomfortable and I don't want to talk about them. And so then I feel like I'm really stuck in a way with, we can't explore this. And that means we're not having these deep discussions, but that means that we're not having the type of intimacy that he asks for.
See how that would be frustrating. Do you see the connection with having non-monogamous conversations and feeling deeper levels of intimacy? And wait, let me make sure. When I say the word intimacy, I'm not talking about sex.
Yeah.
Sex is one of the ways we can get intimacy, but just want to double check that we're using it the same way. So, So Casey, do you notice the difference when you're not having these conversations do you see the correlation in not getting that intimacy?
I think it's one way that I see intimacy was through, in the past was definitely, I really enjoyed really just talking a lot about too. Like that to a certain extent, really was very fulfilling for me. And, I could, to me, it was, if we were monogamous for this entire year, I don't think I would still ever consider myself monogamous. For any length of time, I think I'm always open to the idea of something that feels good. And I know she's biting her tongue over here. But that's like my pace. And so, I would use that for connection, but I think it comes up or brings back to, the way that she likes to share her love and caring feelings and receive them, and how I like to get them and show them. And so I think, I feel like it's lacking for me in some ways. So when I'm able to have a very engaging, deep conversation with somebody, that is very fulfilling. Like that kind of feeds some of that need for intimacy.
So are there different things that you're wishing or wanting to be talking about that would create this deep feeling of intimacy with Laura that you're just feeling like she's not open to or she's not willing?
I mean, I think in a lot of ways, she holds a lot of probably frustration and hurt from, the way I reacted, when we kind of closed the door for a little while. And when I say we closed the door, I don't think any one of us thought it was going to be COVID. And, just keep rolling into months on months on months. But, so when we kind of took a step back, that was a pretty bad moment in probably one of the worst moments we've had in our 20-year history, where I was very concerned that I don't know, that we had just changed, that there was, that was a really big deal, the way I blew up, the way she handled it, the way I handled it. And I don't know if we've actually ever really recovered from that, because we've kind of just...
Because you've buried it? Have you talked about how it went down when you...
Laura's tried. I've been really... since I have not dealt with it, I have not been very on board with the idea. I do, I know I have struggled in our relationship for the last year, feeling like we have really been connected. So like the idea to try to navigate some other, it just difficulty, it seems overwhelming. We've got COVID and kids' school and working from home and dealing with us, and then to like want or have the energy to want to delve into that is scary. I'm probably using that as kind of a shield. It's just, well, hey, it's COVID, you can't do this. But she's brought it up, and unfortunately, our conversations always end up, like a lot of our hard conversations lately, and that's, with us being very defensive towards each other and being, just a lot more emotions, not super fighty or anything, but just definitely not open and caring like it should be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to just make a little space here. This one's going to be tough, because where I really want to go is I really want to open up that conversation a little bit and let you all try to have it with some support. I'm nervous about our time for that. And I'm also nervous about if you all have the kind of, going back to David and Amanda's, the scaffolding, the safety, the safe space that you may need to be able to do that. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe what I want to do is back up a little bit. And for one thing, Laura, I want to give you a little space to fill in and talk about anything that's pinging for you. But I'll also say, if you all feel safe and want to jump in and try to have some of this conversation about how the door closed, we can do it. We may have to stop it a bit abruptly depending on time, but what feels, Laura, what feels for you? What do you
I feel safe to talk about any of these things. I feel safe and comfortable in our relationship. I feel solid in our relationship, so I feel totally safe to talk about whatever issues arise. I have broached the subject with Casey more than once, a lot of times, and he thinks that I'm asking the questions to get a specific response, but I'm really asking the questions so that we can get it all out and then just move through it and move forward with it. I don't respect shoving it down and just ignoring it and thinking it will be different, because in my own history, that's not how things change. Mm-hmm. Things change because I bring them up, I show them to the light, I look at them and I say, wow, this is totally not what I want. How does this become different? It becomes different because I make specific changes with my own body and my own mind, and then I move forward in a different way. But if I continue to do the same patterns all the time, I don't make meaningful change in my own life. And to me, non-monogamy isn't, the end point isn't like all the parties in Mexico every 15 minutes. The end point to me is whole, happy human people living their true life meanings in the world. So I'll just say that, and then sure, we can move into what happened that closed the door.
Oh, okay, so let me check in with you. Does that feel safe to to jump into that a little bit?
I mean, really, I feel very safe. I haven't felt unsafe anything I've shared so far or anything you've said. That doesn't, I want to make sure, one, that there's enough time and that the podcast works. That's, that's important. But again, there's me. I know I can handle any feelings and emotions that come up in my own way. I know I'll be okay. So if you think there's time and this would be beneficial for people to hear, I'm all for it. I'm not.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what it, to me, it sounds like we're all in agreement that needs to happen. That like this, that you've come to the table bravely admitting that your tendency to bury and make excuses for not talking about the difficult things is not serving your relationship, not serving you overall. And you're missing intimacy and connection. Yeah. I imagine you all are familiar with Brené Brown. Yes, nodding here. So one of my favorite Brené Brown sayings is that you don't get to selectively numb. So, Casey, you saying, well, let's not talk about this because there are all these other things to deal with. Oh, let's keep this hard thing buried. Let's numb this part. That numbness eventually takes over everything. And so it also it's going to numb your ability to really receive and feel joy and receive and give love, be open to intimacy, receive a partner's desire for intimacy. And it feels like maybe that's what's happened is like, oh, let's not talk about this because there's COVID. But then now not feeling as close to each other as you'd like to.
Oh, for sure. I think, in the same way that, I discussed before, like some of the ways I feel like I don't get it, I know like even, through sex is huge. Like that's, I'm able to recharge a lot of my bank from that. So I, definitely choose that as a path for our connection, which is great.
I choose it too.
Oh yeah.
I choose it too.
Okay. All right. So let's jump in. Let's talk about what this conversation that you've been avoiding about how this went down, what went down. You guys will know better what that looks like than I will. But let's give me the skinny and.
Well, maybe I'll just go from my perspective. What happened first? I don't know if it's best, but so my perspective was. Well, what just was the straw that broke the camel's back, I feel like, was that Casey was having a very emotional day. He had set up a date outside of a date with somebody else. Yeah. I don't even think he remembers. He's forgotten about it. It was the third date, and he was feeling a lot of pressure from this other person. Actually, it was not even pressure from the other person. I feel like it was just pressure in his own brain. That there was going to be some sort of sexual expectation at that date. And that was the same week as that I got on the apps, and there were 900 dudes messaging me, and he was kind of freaking out. And I was like, dude, if you're freaking out, let's just shut it down. No big deal. We can revisit this later. I was truly open to that. I wasn't feeling resentful or holding on to feelings about that. I was feeling fine with it. And he says to me, well, okay, yeah, let's shut it down. I'm feeling really upset about it. I'm also feeling just super upset about this date. I don't think I really want to date this person. I think on this date, I'm going to just tell her I don't want to date her anymore. And I was like, cool, but you could probably just do that via text and not drive for 45 minutes to do that, but whatever. And he's like, no, I think I need to do it in real life, blah, 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 no problem. I was like, okay, cool. Well, have fun on your date. Hopefully it goes super smooth. And I know that sounds like I'm being flippant, but truly, I felt like that's how I was being.
Yeah, I mean, there was no...
I wasn't feeling like...
We weren't that... when I left, I felt at least kind of okay.
Yeah, you felt kind of okay-ish. Multiple hours went by with no call or text from him. So I was like, I wonder, how it's going. So then I, texted him, no response. Texted him again, no response. Called him, no response. And at that point, I was just kind of, freaking out because he says, I'm going to go meet up with this chick and just tell her no thank you. And I mean, I wasn't truly invested in that. I didn't really care, but usually if I text and call him, he responds. So by the time an hour later he gets back to me, he's like, I left my phone in the car. And I was like, well, what did you do for 3 hours if you weren't just saying, no, thank you, I don't want to date you anymore? And he was like, oh, well, some stuff happened and it went good and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, but if you can't even be honest with me, like, I'm going to go break up with this chick, but really I'm going to go like do sex stuff with this chick. Like, what the hell? I was livid, not about the act. I didn't really care or about anything. I was so angry that he wasn't honest with me about his intentions. And so,
wait. At this point, did you know that he wasn't honest about his intentions, or that's just what you assume?
Oh no, that's what was my narrative in my own mind. In
I think
his
I
mind,
also, that, like, when I talked to you, it was over the phone, when I did see that you had called, I think, I shared complete, what had happened.
oh yeah, he wasn't dishonest when he called me back. He was honest when he called me back and said, hey, this is what really happened. I didn't say I didn't want to see her anymore. I just did sex stuff with her and then drove home. I just left my phone in the truck. And I was like, okay, well, that makes me really angry that you told me one thing and did another. And I think is what made me so angry is because I feel like I'm very like an open book with him and my feelings and my intentions. And I felt like he wasn't respecting me the same respect. And also, in the same day is when he said, you are not allowed to go on apps and talk to dudes because I'm uncomfortable with it. And I'm like, so you can be doing whatever you want with whoever, not even telling me that you're doing it, but I'm not even allowed to set up a third for our relationship. The power imbalance felt so huge that I just like lost my marbles. That's how I felt.
And when you say you lost your marbles, what that looked like?
Oh, I was just raging out. Like I remember being so angry that I was like ill, physically ill.
Okay. And he knows this as he's driving back.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
And that's what I mean by codependent, because, or emotionally so interconnected that he couldn't separate the fact that I was so angry about the honesty or the lack of just to me felt honesty and the act of with that woman. I don't think he could separate that. I think he just felt like shame that he did that with the woman, even though I really just felt angry about the lack of transparency, it felt like to me.
Okay, I don't see that as codependent. I think that your reaction to it feels pretty normal and natural because you heard one thing, happened another. I also want to point out that when we have a period of time where we don't have predictable contact with our partner the way we're used to, and all the alarm bells go off about like, did he actually make it there? Is he dead in the ditch? Is she a serial killer? Is blah, 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 blah. I don't know if your brain goes there, but I know mine does.
Oh, yeah.
And I think as humans,
mine does.
So it's like, if you want to see me lose my marbles, it's worry me for no reason.
Right.
Hell has no fury. It has that.
I know.
Right?
And I was so excited later. I was so excited that he was able to have this interaction with another person, because to me, that was so fulfilling in my previous interactions with other people. So I was actually excited for him that he was able to successfully interact with this other person. But it was just the rage had taken over before I was able to even really experience that.
And in all fairness, I mean, that was not my first mistake navigating this new, and it was probably the biggest, but it was just constant. My inability to feel like I could navigate that well.
Say that more clearly. Like, what do you think you did? How could you have navigated it better?
So, I think I feel so insecure about making bad decisions or saying something stupid or making an ass of myself.
With Laura or with other people?
People in general. With Laura, well, I guess I just fear what, how that looks for Laura when I make an ass of myself. But so I thought it would feel safer for me only because it was easier to not include her, not to have her see every text that I send, and not to be so much apart so that if I fuck it up, I can be like, oh, she just ghosted me and no big deal. Not like, dude, your husband's a weirdo and, whatever. I'm not a weirdo. I know I'm pretty normal. But it was easier for me because if it didn't work, the only judgment I had to face was my own, not Laura's, where she's like, well, what do you mean you couldn't get down in this girl's pants? Not that she would ever say that. But it's easier when only I have to know that truth, I guess. So if I felt like it was safer if I not hid it, but just didn't include her as much. And then, we decided like, okay, well, maybe like whenever you want, just tell me and you can look through my messages. Mm-hmm. And that was like such a cringy thing. And it kind of, it really sparked emotions in Laura. Mm-hmm. And, but she was able to, navigate those feelings in a mature way.
Let me stop you 1 second. Casey, did you share with Laura where that was coming from, that you just shared the bit about being so worried that you look like an ass? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He said that the reason why he didn't want to show me his phone is because he doesn't like it when I correct his spelling and grammar.
No, there was none of that.
And generally say, you should have done it different, or I am judgy, and he doesn't appreciate my judgments because he feels like every judgment is a criticism.
Well, so if I can, some of that is also pace. It feels bad to always be the break. Mm-hmm. I'm always the break. Mm-hmm. Bar maybe the first experience we had. And so many opportunities or whatever you want to call it, where I know Laura was fully on board and I wasn't. And that's, kept her from having fun or whatever. When I know she's fine with, but it hurts to always be the break. She's always had a faster comfort level. And, I didn't want to have to worry about going at her pace as well. So some of it, yes, some judgment, but also like, don't push me. I'm not comfortable. This whole thing is uncomfortable.
Wait, there feels like this one part that feels really important, that yes, pace and judging about grammar and stuff, but it sounds like there's this insecure part that I just want to like scoop up, that's about worrying that something like if you do something and the other girl doesn't like you, that it would make you less attractive in Laura's eyes.
I think it's just an insecure personality that I've had. I think I've always been everybody's afraid of rejection. But yes, I am very insecure around, the opposite sex and people I'm interested in. It's really easy because Laura gets a little frustrated because I spend a lot of time, we go to a club or do something. I'll spend a lot of time talking to somebody who she knows is I have zero interest in sexually, and it's easy because I can talk for hours with these people. Mm-hmm. But it's a little harder. So I think a lot of my feelings revolve around my insecurity. Mm-hmm. And that's something.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that's separate from the like judging and the pace. Those feel like they need to be separate, and that one part especially sounds really young. A young part or old in your life, and a part that needs some reassurance. And honestly, I think it's going to need to come from you, Casey. Laura, you certainly could help some with sharing this to adult Casey, but I think that you are going to have to speak some of that to that part of, if some other woman thinks that I'm a dork and ghosts me, Laura's not going anywhere. She has chosen us and chooses us every day, and opening myself up to rejection to another person isn't going to affect how Laura feels about me.
Which is true.
Yes. Because that just, until you face that part and soothe that part, it's going to be really hard for you to not hide and try to only give her the highlight reel. Like you can't
the
give
hardest thing though in all the problems.
Of course you can't give Laura the Facebook feed. Like she needs to see the good, the bad, the ugly, and that your shit stinks and love you anyway, which she has shown that she's done. But we got to get this other part, this part of you that somehow in this way doesn't believe that she will. Because it almost is like, tell me if this sounds right. It's like, oh gosh, if Laura sees me through the eyes that these other women see me through, she's going to realize that she shouldn't be with me. It's like an imposter syndrome. I don't know if any of this is landing, but is any of that
I would just replace her and women with everyone. Sometimes.
Yeah. I think his perspective is very much that if people find out about him as a person truly, then they won't want to be with him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I just think that I can't build that in him. Mm-hmm. That's my issue, is that I can build that in myself, but I can't build that in him. Mm-hmm. So that does feel like hard for me, because I'd love to be able to build that for him. But
well, let me say this. When we talk about like whole and separate people, like individuated people, that is definitely a goal, but that doesn't mean that you're not whole individuated people in relationship. So I would say that I wouldn't just wash your hands of it, Laura, and be like, well, that's yours. Have fun with that. Like there is stuff you can do. And I will say that I think you were wise to realize that at the end of the day, yes, it is Casey's job. It is his parts to soothe, and it needs to be some alignment with his parts. And I would say that my guess is words of affirmation are pretty important to you, Casey.
Yeah.
The whole compliment thing. Some sort of like clear, simple, child able to understand repetitive mantra. My mantra is repetitive, right? Yep. You know how your kids, you guys have little ones, you know how they want you to read the same freaking book every night? You go to the library and you get like 15 new books, mostly because you're excited you can read something new. And you're like, can we read the bunny book again? And you're like, fuck no, right? You know why? Here's my take on it. Every day, these little kids have so much new stuff coming at them. There's so much they don't know. There's so much that's unpredictable. There's so much that's out of their control. But you know what is under their control? What happens in that bunny book. You know what's predictable? What happens in that bunny book. How you say the characters' names. How you personify them. There is such a comfort to that repetition and that predictability that soothes that soothes their little brains at the end of the day when they are just raw from how much they've been exposed to in that day. So if we think about that, we all have a little kid about that age still running around in our skin, in our psyche. And when that part gets raw, when that part, and I'm going to say it like for Casey, believes that he's like the Wizard of Oz, that if anybody really saw that he's just some middle-aged bald dude behind the curtain, that nobody would believe in Oz anymore. And so he has to bellow and, like try to deflect and whatever. Like when there's the rawness and the exhaustion that comes with that kind of imposter syndrome and that kind of insecurity, there's a really raw nerve that could be not easily soothed. A pretty easy thing for you to do to support might be something simple and repetitive that he can count on. And you guys can work out what that might be. You could say it all day long until you're blue in the face in exactly the script he wants you to say it. And you're right. If he isn't at the same time doing this inner part alignment, it will bounce off. It will mean nothing. But it doesn't mean you couldn't help in that way.
Right.
Okay. Casey, how does that sound as I say that to you? Does that feel like that could be helpful?
I know a lot of my just life issues revolve around, some insecurities, but I don't know. It hurts when I hear Laura has to put more work in or more effort, because I think she has to put in a ton of effort every day to play the person that she thinks I want her to be. And, that's taxing. I know I'm not the easiest person to...
But I'm a grown-up person that can make choices about how to do my own life. And if my life says I want to show up in this way for my partner and be here every single day and continue to build this life together, then that's on me. It's not your responsibility to opt me out.
Bingo.
Because I'm
and
a
that's
grown-up.
where the codependency...
That is codependency, yes. So
and that is what I'm seeing some light to. The more we have these discussions.
But can I also point out that you going to, I just hate for Laura to have to do this extra thing. I'm already a hard person to live with. Do you hear how that is like, it feeds that narrative it's like, sadly how familiar is comfortable, even if familiar is toxic.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So even that, it's like, oh no, don't do that. Cause it's like, you've found a way to now switch this offering I've given her to support you. You then just went right ahead and switched that into, instead of hearing this mantra, I'm just going to see that it's yet another thing she has to do because I'm such a burdensome person. So right away, you're ready to deflect that love she was willing to give you.
Yeah.
We're getting nods over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it's a podcast.
And in a lot of ways that, probably is how, I move through life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little bit, I don't know, deep, to just see that. And, I know I joke about it a lot, and, I try to bring some, sense of comfort to that.
Mm-hmm.
But it happens like right then when I just, I don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I also wanted to share, this is actually something I shared with Jack and Jill on the last Power of Witness that they were a part of. This idea of a pond is your relationship, and you each have a boathouse on either side. And most of the time, you get in your boats and you paddle to the center and you circle around, and it's lovely, and you have your little thing, and then you're back to your individual boathouses. And it's usually you meet in the middle.
Right.
And then there are times when one of you's got the flu, and you paddle all the way over and you bring them soup. And then you paddle back and you do all the things that it takes to paddle there and back. And you take care of your boathouse. And while you're over there, you clean her boathouse too. Amazing. And then, another time somebody's, Casey's parents sick. I don't know. And so Laura says, no problem. I'm going to paddle all the way over and I'm going to take care of yours while you're taking care of theirs. No problem. Yeah. And that is the nature of a committed relationship. A lot of the times it's 50-50. A lot of times it's 90-100, but then the next time it's 90-100 flip the other way. And I think that it is often very hard for us. I think it's often harder for us to sit in the boathouse and watch our partner paddle all the way over than it is for us to get in our boat and paddle all the way over.
Oh, of course.
Right. And I will say that the like really true, deep exhale, knowing that we are loved, we're seen and we're heard and we're understood and we're loved anyway, comes from being able to sit and watch our partner paddle all the way over and realize, like just what Laura said, they are a grown-ass person who chooses to do this. They're not like, God, you stupid, I gotta go over there. It's a gift to be able to love someone like that.
Very much so.
We have to clean our boathouses, let's say it this way. We have to clean our boathouses to be able to sit on the shore and watch the beauty of that gift of our partner paddling toward us. And what does cleaning our boathouses mean? Working on believing that we are worthy of this. understanding the parts of us that are scared to believe we're worthy of this, that alignment of all of these parts. Let me back up and say, Casey, this isn't necessarily about like you going back and like healing something that happened a long time. Like these parts are alive and well right now. They're in you right now. Like they are informing your narrative. They're informing your actions, your motivation. So it's not like, oh, I don't want to have to go back to 1986. I'll just stay here. Yeah, no, 1986 is right here with you. It's already here. So you can think that you don't have to go back there, but until you acknowledge that they're there and you get everybody working on the same team, everybody's running a different direction and your boathouse is a hot mess.
That it is. You see my shop? I want a magic button.
Yeah.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
But no, it's just, yeah, I mean, that's something that has been brought up in the past. And it's just, that's, I don't know, I think probably the most difficult thing for me to try to work on. You know, I've worked on so much this past year, but I've even, you know, thought of this before, how I really have not dealt with that. And, because it's a very scary thought.
What is a scary thought?
Dealing with it. I think it's been me, just my feelings of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know that, I mean, you know, like I said, if I'm talking to you and everybody else, I can see, like, I know I'm a good person. I have my good things and my bad things just like everybody else. But that underlying feeling, that imposter feeling, the Wizard of Oz, where I'm always, I don't know, I'm afraid if people actually see who I really am, then they won't want to hang out or whatever. And yeah. So I mean, unfortunately, I don't think this is where any of us thought this conversation would go. I was hoping you were going to tell Laura that I was doing so many things awesome.
Oh.
Well, she did say you were doing so many things awesome at some point. Yes. And then, you know, we'll all do awesome stuff together. Yeah. I have stuff stuck in my boathouse that needs to get cleared out.
So we all have
continue to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, and the other thing is scary to deal with my feelings of insecurity. Again, I would bet that there's some part of you that's like, oh, it'll be easier if I don't deal with my insecurities. And again, I want to challenge that word and say, you not dealing with your insecurities is creating this whole other mountain of trouble. Right. And so it's like,
that really hit when you said easy, because it's not easy. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course it's easy. I don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. And I can live with all the emotions because I think I've lived with them for long enough.
But does our day-to-day feel easy? No, it doesn't. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel healthy. It feels easy. Healthy. It feels consistent and, you know, kind of like the child's book. You know, it's that's what happened yesterday. It's easy. You know, we've dealt with these emotions before.
Mm-hmm. But did we really deal with them?
No, and is it really easy? So that really right there was just, I mean, that was definitely a whole moment. Like,
okay. All right. So I was going to transition us to takeaways. Let me also say though, we started this conversation. We knew we weren't going to get through it. We started it. Everybody's still in one piece. I encourage you to come back to this conversation. I think the other thing is sometimes we put this pressure that when we have these conversations that they are a quote failure if we don't get all the way to the end with everyone's feathers unruffled. That's just bullshit. That is not how it works. When we've got this, especially something you've dug, I mean, that you've dug a hole and buried it, you know, you're going to get blisters on your hands as you use that shovel to start digging it out. Stop. Don't take your hands to the bloody nubs. Dig on it a little while and then put it to rest for a little while. This is as much as we needed to get through tonight. It's just plenty, right? And then be able to come back. And so then you don't have quite as much of an adverse reaction or reaction to the idea of coming back to it because you haven't bloodied yourself in having the conversation. Have this in small chunks. As soon as it gets too defensive or too adolescent or too like you're about to bonk each other, stop it.
I think that we've worked on that this year.
We have worked
on that.
Good.
Because we were
I like
getting
that.
really far deep into it every time, and it was getting just too intense, like
Yes.
for both of us, because he doesn't like conflict and I live for conflict. So I feel like conflict is how you get to the meat of it and then move through it. And he feels like conflict should be completely avoided at all costs.
Yeah.
So our communication styles were not meshing very well.
I'll also mention with the relationship boot camp that I gifted you guys, make sure you listen to that module about questioning and rethinking conflict. That was a game changer for us. My husband was quite conflict avoidant too, and helping us to reframe that conflict is actually how we find deep connection. And then why we avoid it, that was game changer for us. So I definitely will put that as a follow-up for you guys. All right. Any other takeaways? The word easy was one for you, Casey. Any others?
That was big for me.
I guess I don't really know if I have any takeaways yet.
Okay.
Kind of in it still. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe we'll come back after we do feedback and you can share takeaway then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. Rolling with
Thank you.
Sometimes it is really hard to predict where we're going to go. And I think we went a little over, but again, we started that conversation.
I appreciate everything, the opportunity. So thank you.
Sure. Of course. Okay. So again, we're going to give everybody a chance to give you feedback. We're going to come back. You're going to report on what it was like to be on the hot seat and then report on what it felt like to get the feedback. And Laura, you're on the hook for a takeaway. All right. So let me do this Brady Bunch style. How about if I call out? Can I do that? Let's see. I'm seeing some nods. Amanda says I can, so I'm going to make her go first.
I'll go first. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Well, first of all, after going on the hot seat last week, I have a true new appreciation for your vulnerability and willingness to share. So thank you for doing that. And wanted to say first to start off so I don't forget, Laura, at the beginning, what you said about non-monogamy, it was just so beautiful to me. And just the fact that, you pointed out for you, it's more of like this road. It's not about all the parties in Cancun. It's about becoming this whole person, and showing up. And I just thought that was beautifully said. And I also, understand your experience with being on the dating apps and that frustration of feeling like you're putting yourself out there and being inundated with people that want to, talk to you and your partner not necessarily having those many connections. And it just brings up this whole roller coaster, of emotions. You feel bad, but then you feel good and, you want to fix it for the other person and all kinds of things. But the one thing that I did hear, for me, words of affirmation are hard anyways. They feel kind of superficial. But then, Casey, as you're talking about wanting to hide, like, some of your interactions with other people on these apps, I could hear the opportunity for Laura, I think, to give you some of those words of affirmation that you're looking for. I know for me, when I see David kind of reach out and, he says some kind of corny line that doesn't land or something, for me, it makes me love him even more. I'm sitting there and it's just like, oh my God, he's so cute. And this woman is just, she's not, picking up on it. And it gives me, the opportunity to kind of show him how cute and cool that I think he is. So, just thought maybe that could be a place for you, but I'll start talking now.
Great, Amanda. Thanks.
Thank you both. I think Amanda points out that the relationship framework does give such a great opportunity to communicate. And it is challenging when you're in a period, whether it's from the pandemic or whatever. I can feel that loss that you feel from that loss of communication. And I remember, Laura, you bringing it up, I think, a few weeks ago. And I remember that resonating then as well. Casey, I can feel the feelings that you're sharing around insecurity and know how hard that can be, and sort of how detrimental it is to your own image of yourself and what you're putting out there. And so, thank you for sharing that. And it's good to know that we're not the only ones who find life to be a roller coaster.
Thank you,
So
David.
thank you for sharing.
Thanks, David. Oh, Jill, are you playing with your hair? Or are you raising your hand?
I'm being coy.
All right. Well, how about your coy on the feedback seat?
Okay, fine. Laura and Casey, thank you for being super honest and vulnerable and just, toasting your buns there on that seat for like you did. Codependency. That is, I don't know. It's just something epic, but I know in Jack and I's life, like once the light bulb went on, and thank you to Catherine for her incredible analogies of the boathouse. And I don't know, she gave us some other ones too. Like I've talked with lots of other people who struggle with it for years. And it was like Catherine she turned that light bulb on for us and we just started walking. And I think you guys you have that same light bulb turned on, and man, it makes life better when we each keep our own side of the street clean. Tell you what, it's changed things for us. So, yeah. And I love listening to both of your stories, both of your walks. I resonated with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Yeah. Laura and Casey, first of all, thank you so much for just playing at 110%, putting difficult stuff out there. That's where the good stuff happens. And it may feel shitty right now. It may feel like it's been shitty for a while or whatever. But the one thing, Carl Jung has a quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And what I heard both of you do tonight is you're bringing the unconscious into the conscious, and it feels really scary. Casey, I really resonated with the easy part. We think it's easy because it's the devil we know. It's not actually easy, but it's the struggle that we know, and we know how to get up and attack it the same way every day. And I don't see either one of you as being okay with that. Casey, I resonate a lot with you, and Laura, I do with you too. I was just reading back in my diary from last January, and I was in the midst of it. We were in the midst of our struggle and talking with Catherine and all that, and just some of the things that I was writing in my diary at that point. And I was so focused on this non-monogamy portion and all the good things that it was bringing to us. And was I going to have to let that go for the sake of a relationship? And did I even want to, if that's what a relationship was going to look like? But Casey, I really resonate with you. I'm trying to find the line between power of witness and advice here, so just cut it out if I don't make that line. But what I've realized in the last 6-8 months is that my context, my way of being, the way I approached life, was that I was trying to make it all okay and make Jill happy. And I was totally not even thinking about myself. It was easier. Okay, air quotes don't work well on a podcast. It was air quotes easier to put her needs or her happiness in front of my own and to not think about my own happiness. But it was until I stared that monster in the face of, what's Jack want here? How would Jack approach dating. How would Jack do this? And to sit in that uncomfortableness, and holy hell, was it ever uncomfortable? And it still is, but I'm getting better at it. Catherine has a book club going on right now called No More Mr. Nice Guy, and that book changed my life. I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, I actually wrote that in the follow-up resources is to share that book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, with you. Thank you.
And I am here. I will share my contact info with both of you. We're here. We're not done just because we're on a podcast together.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely do some contacting through MeWe and our group. Thank you both for sharing that and your personal journeys as part of your reflection. Bill and Felice, you ready?
Yeah. Let me just start off with saying, wow, just to have that conversation here tonight like you did is just beautiful, brave, vulnerable. I'm so impressed that you stepped forward and did that for both of you. I think Felice and I have been there.
Yeah.
It reminded us exactly of
we were like, oh my God.
It's like almost precisely something that we went through, the same feelings. So I don't want to project too much on to either one of you, but we've had the same feelings of insecurities that Casey talked about. I could feel, and the male female dynamic on the dating apps, and that just amplifies those insecurities. It's like a megaphone on those insecurities. You just feel like, oh my God, she's just got everybody and I've got nobody. What do I do? And, it's just, your reaction's completely natural. And, there was so much that you talked about that, that I personally felt. The bearing is something that I've done for a lot of my life on a lot of different things. As Jack just commented, the hard, easy part, that the easiest thing sometimes seems just to stay the course, keep doing what you're doing, just keep on keeping on. But actually, it can be hard because it comes up to bite you in the end. Anyway, just the whole thing, everything you talked about, the codependency and the way the dynamic between you just really related and really felt. It really gave us a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to chew on. And we're so appreciative for you to share and give us, your experience as something to help us think about. And, you've got kinship and you've got brothers and sisters here who are going through the same things.
Yes. So,
thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks. Felice, anything you want to add?
Well, when Casey talks about being an imposter, I read Sheryl Sandberg's book years ago, and about feeling like an imposter, and like somebody's going to find you out and go, you're not the person you are pretending to be. I feel that a lot more at work than I do at home or in the lifestyle, because, I'm trying to be myself in the lifestyle and I want people to want me for who I am. But I do find that problematic, and there's a sense of hiding that you do, and you don't let people in because you fear they're going to find you out. So I get that. I really resonate with that. And, like Bill said, we've been through this, exactly what you guys are going through. So, just push each other to communicate. I know but that's how we got through it, and just, it's hard. I know it's hard, but you guys are so brave to dig, as Catherine said, dig at it a little bit. And Bill's a pusher, so we always had to communicate. So, hang in there. It's going to get better.
Thank you so much. I also want to mention having a pusher of a conversation and a not pusher of a conversation. In my dynamic with my husband, we made it safe for him to be like, okay, I'm saturated. That's all I got. Because, I mean, can you imagine how long I could talk about relationships? Like, there's hardly an end, he would get scared about even starting the conversation because he knew that he didn't have the stamina for that I did. And so once we built that in to make it like, okay. And he'd be like, okay, I think I got enough for like one more question. And I'm like, okay, good. Then I know like which one's it going to be. Right. But that I didn't have to take that personally. It didn't mean anything bad about the relationship. It was just a difference in our stamina. So throw that out there too. All right. Emma and Finn, would you like to go next?
I just want to say that your bravery tonight was very impactful for me. How vulnerable both of you were and open. I feel like I have so much to say and so much to reflect on. So thank you both for doing this, for putting out, being able to put this all out there. It's not easy, and it's hard work. And there's a few things I'll touch on that I could relate to. Well, a lot of it I could relate to. I see a lot of myself in both of you in different instances. But I also really loved, Laura, at the beginning, like what you said, non-monogamy kind of meant to you. And I see that a lot in myself too, of why I push myself through some of the hard stuff, because I ultimately know that it's worth it, and it's true, because it feels beautiful and true to me, and so it's worth the hard things. I resonate with you, Casey, when you said at one point a fear of losing her, even though that feels irrational. I have that fear too, and it does feel irrational, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And figuring out how to communicate and for me, like figuring out my wants and needs to try to make that not be as high of a fear, I guess. And I think another thing I resonated with is the insecurities and it's scary to deal with your imperfections. We're all imperfect in different ways. And it's really scary to acknowledge that and work through them and deal with it. But ultimately, the people that mean the most to you will show up and support you through that. And it's worth it. I also related to when you said like the miscommunication. We've had that too. And trying to figure out how to get on the same page when you just don't feel on the same page. And it just takes work and time and effort and space and and then one last thing I'll share, the comment about, I think Catherine, you actually said this, but like am I worthy of whatever, that gets back to, for me, like just negative self-talk. And it's not, most days it's like not there, but some days it really is there. And that's okay. And I think for me, realizing that it's okay to have those days where you're not okay and to work through those things. So so many things that I reflect on, and that's just some of them. So thank you again for being brave and vulnerable and being here and showing up tonight.
Thank you, Emma.
Your turn before I get too emotional.
Yeah, no, again, like everybody said, thank you both for being here and for sharing everything. I think one of my favorite moments was Laura ripping into Casey, relatively speaking, about everything that happened on the night. we'll call it the night. And then at the end of it, Casey's like, well, and let's be clear, that wasn't the first time I fucked it up. And when you started that sentence, I was like, well, he's going to fight back here. And then he's just like, no, yeah, I fucked it up then and I did it before. And so that to me was like the epitome of being vulnerable and just like owning the shit. And I think that says a lot for both of you that you're in here owning the shit. And you might not have it figured out yet, but none of us do. So, thank you for that. I think a couple of things that I really related to, I mean, the insecurities that Casey struggles with, I think those are huge for me as well. And it's interesting that I have on the flip side, I relate a lot with Laura and not, until recently, not being good about giving compliments. I think I always was of the mindset that like, well, I'm here every day and I row my boat over to your boathouse every day. So like, don't you get it? Like, I think all of the things that I'm not saying, and I think that's not enough. Right. And so you have to show up and say the stuff, especially as somebody who's insecure and wants to hear the stuff. Right. And so it's kind of hypocritical in a lot of ways. So yeah, that was just something that I've really been working on myself and I really resonated with there.
He has made improvements. I'm just going to stick that in there. It's gotten better.
Yay.
And yeah, I mean, there's the vulnerability and the I don't know. I could talk forever on it. I would say maybe the one piece about the I know we're not supposed to give advice, but I'll say this doesn't work.
He's like, I'm going to break the rules every time. So here I go.
What doesn't work when you're trying to convince your partner that they're safe and secure is saying that if I was going to leave, I would have done it a long time ago. That's not a great way to go about that. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, you're like, damn it, like I'm here. I rode over here every day for the last 20 years. Like, I'm going to row over here tomorrow and I'm going to row over here in 2 days. And it's hard to convince somebody. So yeah, you're in a struggle and we're in the struggle. All of us are here with you. So
I love how Finn found a way to still give it. I love it. But it is actually a really good point because one thing that I'll throw out there is, if the way that like you're saying, Finn, like I've rowed my boat every day. Like, isn't that enough? Like, why can't you see it? Instead of like being frustrated that they can't see it. It's like, wait, flip it around and say, I have all this love that I've put into rowing my boat over here and showing up. It's not landing. So how can I do it in a different way? Because it can feel really frustrating if we're putting all this effort and it's not being noticed. It's like, why don't we then channel our effort into a way that they can hear better? So that's because so you don't build the resentment about not your efforts not being noticed. Okay. Thank you for great feedback coming in. Emma and Finn. All right, Laura and Casey, let's start with takeaway, Laura, if you've got one.
I mean, I know it's like the last thing that I just heard, but trying to find a way to make what I'm doing every day like noticed. Because the way that I have been showing him that I'm here and that our relationship is stable and solid. He already said I was going to be a mess. It's true. I cry all the time. Is not really working. I mean, it's not working. So I have been trying to explore with him, like, what that looks like to him. What does a stable, solid, good relationship look like so that I can at least see what he needs, but we're not really there yet to be able to, like, verbalize that or understand it. So I think we just need to do more work on kind of what we need to feel stable and solid. I think I started this with that, like, hey, I feel like we have a great relationship. It's not working so good right now, but I need to figure out a different way to I guess, navigate that.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I noted those. I wrote that down in your notes. So if you'll each report on what it felt like to be on the hot seat and how it felt to get feedback.
You guys heard that? You saw that? I feel more vulnerable now after hearing people's takeaways and reflections, or whatever you want to call that. Yeah, it was really, it was nice that a lot of people listened, and it seemed like absorbed information, which is always nice. It was nice to see, that bring emotions, but it was also hard because I feel, now, of course, with my insecurities, I feel like people are like, oh my gosh, these people are a wreck, and trying to give it, like, they want to give us so much feedback. But yeah, it's nice because I think being vulnerable and to just these, what is there, like 8 or 9 of us, to be able to do that to, I don't know how many listeners you guys have, but 5 or 6 at least. No, is really it could be really powerful. So I feel good, but more vulnerable now than I did when it was just the 3 of us.
Yeah. And I'll just point out that same tendency to take, we hear you, we struggle too. There's so much that we see of ourselves in you, and turn it toward us believing that we all think you're a hot mess. So again, I say that with loving truth, that, if we shine that light on how that's just such the auto tendency, then maybe we start to notice the pattern and can start to shift it.
Well, and I know this is already way longer than it should be, but I think what we feel is felt in so many people. It's just not talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys are brave enough to do it.
Like non-monogamy, to normalize, these issues, is pretty critical. So thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you for putting it out there. All right. Laura, how about for you, how it felt to be on the hot seat and get the feedback?
The hot seat felt fine. I don't have a lot of, I don't mind sharing and being vulnerable, really. Like, anybody could talk to me and I'm happy to talk to them. The feedback feels good because I can't say I like to hear that we're normal, but I like to hear that we're normal, because I feel sometimes isolated in the just us, and sometimes you can kind of see the just us, just the 2 people in the relationship, and not know that there may be other people kind of managing or dealing with the same types of things, and feel like, man, am I just so crazy that this is an issue? Because people don't really talk about it or bring it up or say, hey, this is a problem in my relationship too, so I really like the feedback. So thank you, everybody, for giving that to us.
Great. Thank you all. All right. Let's wrap it up for tonight, and we'll come back one more time to share reflections and wrap up. And we will, I'll be in touch this week with what to expect with that, so you can all do a little preparation, and we'll see you soon.
I just really quick wanted to say, Catherine, and to Casey, that don't worry about how long we went. If I was going to hang up on you, it would have been a long time ago.
And we're back. Thank you again. I know we've said it a lot, but thank you again for Laura and Casey for showing up and being your true, authentic selves and opening up to everyone on this episode. And thank you again to Catherine, of course, and everyone in the bleachers and that was witness, and for all of the amazing feedback. This was our last hot seat episode. However, you're going to definitely want to stay tuned and listen to the episode on the takeaways that is coming up next Friday.
Yes, please hang with us. Don't be tempted to think you've gotten all the goodie and that this is just going to be a bunch of repetitive wrap up. There are some real gems in the next session. So please stick with us.
Yeah. You both said it so well. If you're looking for links to any of the things that we talked about, they're in the show notes, as well as how to learn more about joining one of these future cohorts of Power of Witness with Catherine. Again, not publicly, not on our podcast, but privately. Check out the show notes, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the resources tab, and you will see a link for Power of Witness, or just head down into your podcast app show notes. And yeah,
I think that's it.
So we'll see everybody in a week for the wrap up episode.
Wrap episode, sure. Takeaway episode. Yep. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.